Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Stowers. I'm Executive Director of the Charles Koch Foundation, and I'm so excited for this conversation on the future of work and education. Now, you'll notice that this session falls under the Work Reimagine track of the conference, and that's completely intentional. We believe that the future of work is directly tied to the future of education. And to reimagine work, we need to also reimagine education or learning, including upskilling programs and skill-based certifications. At the Charles Koch Foundation, we believe that both education and work should empower people to discover, develop, and apply their unique aptitudes to improve their own lives and the lives of others. Now, this pandemic has forced millions into unemployment who are now seeking new skills for today's in-demand jobs. And like never before, we feel strongly that now is the time to embrace learning that is individualized, accessible, and dynamic. And there is so much incredible work being done in this space. I'm constantly amazed by the innovative, bottom-up solutions created by social change entrepreneurs who are working so hard to open up opportunities that provide a better way. And I know many of you listening today think about this every day. Well, our two panelists certainly do so. I'm really excited for you to hear from Nitsan Pellman, CEO and founder of Climb Higher, and Josh Jarrett, Executive Chair of the Skill Up Coalition. Let's dive right in. Nitsan, let's start with you. What is Climb Higher and what inspired you to start it?
So Climb Higher is an organization that is really about creating economic opportunity and mobility for what we refer to as hidden and overlooked talent, or also what we refer to as diverse and determined talent. Generally, the people that we serve are earning below livable wage incomes. They're oftentimes working 1 or 2 or 3 jobs to very barely pay the bills, and have drive and grit and motivation and aptitude and want to break into a new career and a new industry, one that would pay middle-class wages, but breaking in is really hard. And a big part of our solution is focusing both on social capital and relationships as a way to break in, and also building skills at the same time. And I used to be an entrepreneur in residence at LinkedIn, and one of the things that I learned when I was there is that 9 out of 10 job seekers are getting jobs through referrals. They put a referral button on their platform, and that's what they learned when they looked at the data and the results of that referral button. And it just made me really think deeply about all the opportunities that I've had in my life, and so many of the people that I know, and the vast majority of them have come through relationships and networks and doors opening through that. And so we spend a lot of time helping climbers build community amongst each other, with the goal that once some of them break in, they will bring others in with them, because you're always asked for referrals on the inside when you don't necessarily know about opportunities from the outside. And similarly, we build lots of other relationships. And then we also train up on the Salesforce Administrator certification, and we will start to train up on Google's project management certification, as well as 2 learning tracks for skill building alongside of soft skills and community and relationship skills.
So Nitsan, just listening to you describe this, and we've talked before about this, I think one of the things we've learned from you is, as important as the skills aspect of this is, it sounds like there are other components that are critical, especially to the people that you're really trying to help connect and provide better opportunities for. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And then if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about your personal story as well. If you could do that, that would be great.
Sure. So, on the climber side, I would say, people are not always treated that well when you're in that frontline role. There's a lot of racism in our country. There's a lot of just a lot of messages that get shared with those frontline workers in different ways about their aptitude, their ability, their value, their worth. And they many times come to us feeling like the opposite of knowing how much potential they have. Oftentimes comes with anxiety, with heartache, with feelings of inadequacy, of imposter syndrome, mental, health needs. And in addition to building skills, I think there's just a huge component around building people's sense of self and helping them feel like they can conquer and they can do a lot of great things in their bones and in their skin and in their identities. And we find that having them be each other's community and seeing alumni come back and play a key role in helping them learn their own value and learn the skills, learning something hard together, oftentimes is a confidence boosting experience, but also having that camaraderie and that self, that community that says like, oh, like I know you lived out of your car, for a year or two while you couldn't figure out how your bills were being paid. That happened to me too. And there's something really powerful about having people having one another support each other in that communal experience of then moving into a different career and a different life trajectory. And so our alumni come back and they train the next cohort. And so it's a near peer leadership model. I think it's incredibly powerful for somebody to say, I worked at the Amazon warehouse for 5 years packing boxes, and now I'm a Salesforce administrator at TripAction, and I'm going to help you get there because 6 months ago I was in your shoes. So we're really leveraging the assets of our community in the fullest way, which are that they are assets and they are the power for the next cohort, and they're the inspiration and the role models. And on a personal level, I'll say I was undermined in many ways as a young person. I was told from a very young age that I wasn't really capable of a lot and had learning disabilities that really disrupted almost all of my early years of learning, really like first grade until 12th grade. And I sort of know firsthand what it means to have those messages come to you from adults that sort of say like, your best isn't very good, and your capability, as a result of that are probably very limited. And later on in life, in my college years, I sort of had a different set of influences, people who believed in me in a very different way, almost by accident. I had a boyfriend who went to Harvard, and so therefore I started to spend a lot of time at Harvard, and it was the first time in my life that I didn't have a stupid label, and instead I had a smart label. And all of a sudden I sort of felt my own power in a very different way, but realized I had a lot of catch-up work to do. And most of my 20s was teaching myself how to write and use critical thought in writing, and how to hone a lot of the skills that I think a lot of my peers got when they were younger. It was a very painful experience, but one that really taught me a lot about how much human capacity and human capital can really be elevated or squashed based on messages that you get. And so at Climb Higher, we just have a really strong belief in people, and we don't let them fail and we don't let them fall. And we do that through acts of love and kindness and community and empowerment. And then that's part of our value system. But part of our value system is also doing the hard work, and they come together. You can't just network your way out of poverty. You can't just build skills and all of a sudden be out of poverty. Like there's ways in which these things are, they have confluence together.
Wow, it's so inspiring to think about all the lives you're changing as a result of your work. Thank you, Nissan. So Josh, Nissan talked a lot about other things that these individuals need in addition to skills, but we also know skills matter, and you're leading a coalition called Skill Up. So from your perspective, they definitely matter. Can we talk about this this opportunity to really flesh out what these individuals are facing and how we as entrepreneurs can help them get what they need to reach their full potential? And if you wouldn't mind doing that as a part of this, maybe just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Skill Up as well.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for having me. Let me share a little bit about my background and the lessons that I've learned that started to really shape the Skill Up Coalition. So I've been working at this intersection between education and employment for about the last 15 years. First as a leader of the Gates Foundation's post-secondary success strategy, then as a co-founder of a predictive hiring startup, and then a corporate education company, and then most recently at a university in Australia. So really looking from lots of different seats at the challenge of education as a pathway to economic mobility. And three things have become really clear to me in that work is one is that we desperately need shorter, more applied programs besides just the bachelor's degree or even the associate's degree. The average 18-year-old is going to live to be 100 years old. And some people think that the first person who's going to live to 150 has already been born. So we know that this construct of a 4-year degree at the beginning of your career is outdated. And we're going to need these sort of pulses of learning that are woven into our career and lives. Some people call this a 60-year curriculum. Michelle Weiss calls this sort of long life learning. And this is most important for the 60% of our population that doesn't have a bachelor's degree. So if you get to 25 or 30 and you haven't been able to get a BA, it's highly unlikely that you're going to get one. And so we need viable pathways to help people get to middle class jobs, particularly those that are often on the fringe of our economy or our society. So these are individuals who are disproportionately women, Black, Latinx, and we need to help create these pathways just like Nissan is doing to stability, mobility, and dignity through work. So that was the first lesson. The second lesson is that these short-term programs need to be what I call tight pathways, and in many ways of what Nissan describes. So starting with the jobs and the employers that are actually there at the end of the process, weaving in those technical skills, but integrating those career skills, financial and other wraparound supports. Skill building is necessary, but it's definitely not enough. And in many cases, helping people address what we call at Skill Up, so their own helping them doubt their own self-doubt. Right? They come with their own kind of educational trauma. They've had a negative experience with learning and education. And now I've been, selling phones at the Verizon store for 5 years. The idea of going back to school is terrifying. And so packaging these pathways together is critical. And the third and last big lesson was that we need lower friction ways for workers to discover, trust, enroll in, and succeed in these short-term reskilling programs. So imagine you're that Verizon worker today, it's the Wild West. How do you find out about any of these pathways? You have these sort of things around college beaten into your head, but otherwise, maybe you go to a local job center, if that's even open during COVID. More likely you're going to a Google search bar or you're asking a friend. So we need curation and vetting of these pathways to make sure that people know what are the good ones, what are you going to get, who's it a good fit for, what are the likely employment outcomes, and how's this going to affect your life. So those are the broad lessons that we're applying as part of the Skill Up Coalition, which is a new effort with 50 plus training providers, employers, technology companies, philanthropists who've come together to pool our resources to support COVID impacted workers. So in particular, we're working for those who've been most hard hit by the COVID economic crisis. So these are folks that were already living paycheck to paycheck on the front lines of our economy in low wage jobs who don't have a bachelor's degree. And so they've been hardest hit. And so how do we help them take this moment to find and get on one of these short-term reskilling pathways to an in-demand career? So we provide a service at skillup.org where a worker in 30 seconds can get personalized recommendations. They provide their zip code, their last job, a couple of questions about how you like to work, and you get served up. Maybe it's that project management is a growing industry near where you are, close to something you've done before, and a program like Climb Higher can help you get there. Maybe it's an HVAC technician is something that appeals to you and is connected there. And here's a high quality program and who's who's hiring in your region. So it's an effort that's come together in the last, we've been live now for 7 months. We've helped about 175,000 workers to date who are looking to reskill, looking for trusted partners, and looking for a path to a better future.
Wow, incredible. And we're thrilled to be among the group of supporters for what you're doing, Josh. It's great and impactful work. So you used a term, COVID impacted learners. What's the long-term potential here? So recognizing that entrepreneurs responded to the crisis we're facing, but once COVID is behind us, are we done?
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, we needed a short-term reskilling ecosystem before COVID. We need one now, and we're desperately going to need one post-COVID, right? If you remember a year ago, we were all panicked about automation and the shifts in the economy. Well, 5 years of automation have been happening right now during COVID. You're going to see incredible automation when it was already, people were making those decisions to automate. Well, now we've just laid off or furloughed 54 million Americans. Those automation decisions are going to be even easier to make. We also are only in the very beginning of unwinding generations of racial inequities. So employers are reevaluating the ways that they are hiring to be more inclusive, how they're giving people developmental opportunities. So all of these are still in the early days. And so at SkillUp, we hope to earn the right through this first chapter during COVID to really be part of this meaningful, innovative ecosystem for rapid reskilling that is going to exist post-COVID. And we're really appreciative of the support of the Charles Koch Foundation, commitment to these shorter, more flexible education opportunities to let everybody find their potential. And we're excited that now is the time, right? That there's a lot of work to do, but we've never been closer than we are today because there's been this whole wave of social entrepreneurs like Nitsan who've developed these programs, because forward-thinking employers are adopting new practices and investing in strategic education programs for their employees. The data systems and technology platforms are coming along. The only things we haven't really figured out how to scale are, one, this human touch of coaches and helping people doubt their own self-doubt. And two, the kind of financial and other wraparound supports that are required to really scale these and help remove the barriers in individuals' lives. So there's a lot of work to be done, but I'm certainly an optimist, and I think that we're going to able to use this moment, hopefully, to catalyze a lot of work that wouldn't have come together so fast or with such scale, and really rely on it in the decades ahead.
Oh, that's great. No, and the disruption and the momentum is contagious. I mean, it's incredible to see what's just spontaneously popping up as a result of the opportunities we face to really change people's lives. So in order to make this real for the audience, I think stories matter. So I'm going to put you both on the spot, and Nitsan, can you share with us an example of what this looks like for someone who's gone through Climb Higher and experienced the change that you're talking about? And then Josh, I'll ask you the same question if that's okay. So Nitsan, why don't you tell us about someone you know who's changed?
I'll tell you one about URAL. URAL is a climber who we met. He had gotten a college degree from SF State, which is generally a university that serves low-income people of color populations. And he actually even had a computer science degree. He's incredibly bright. He thought when college was over that all the doors would start to open up because he had a in-demand degree and had finished and did well, and applied for something like 100 jobs. And not one employer even responded to his cold application. He didn't have a network. He didn't have a way to break in. And in college, when we live in dorms and sing in a cappella clubs and play lacrosse and write for the newspaper, we get to build networks. But a lot of students, first gen in particular, don't get to do those things because Somebody at home needs their support, needs financing, needs help. And so he started a job at Burlington Coat Factory while he was in school to help his mom, who was a housekeeper and was the only income earner in his home. And 6 years later, he was still a cashier at Burlington Coat Factory, or only working 20 hours a week because they don't let you work more than that because then they have to give you health benefits. And your schedule changes every week, so there's no real way to have multiple jobs other than doing Lyft or Uber because your employer doesn't give you the same schedule week after week, and so it's even hard to juggle multiple jobs. So we met him 6 years post graduation from college and 6 years into a retail job for which he knew he had so much more potential and so much more in him. He went through our program in cohort 1, so he was in our pilot cohort, and today is earning over 70K, and just hit his 1-year anniversary and just got a $10,000 raise. He's working in the Salesforce ecosystem as a analyst and a project manager, and using a lot of his Salesforce skills. And he told me many times in those early days, like, Nitzan, like, I have a lot of anxiety. Like, I feel so ashamed of where I am in life. I thought I was going to be so much further along than I am today. And, and then I come into this community and everybody here has the same dreams and is stuck in the same place that I am, which is, having a job that doesn't feel like, the fullness of who they are, and wants a different life. And all of a sudden, that shame and anxiety feel like they can rest a little bit because I'm in the comfort of community and people who have the same aspirations but are stuck in the same places. So, for Josh, one thing to sort of contend with is like what there are so many URALs out there who do have college degrees but are still not breaking in. And we sold the American dream to these people by telling them that college degrees were going to be what was going to change their lives and their outcomes. And we have just seen a network gap play out in such profound ways for communities of color. That's why we at Climb Higher are agnostic. If they have a college degree and they're still earning below livable wage, college hasn't done what it was supposed to do. And similarly, if you haven't finished college or taken some credits and didn't get to finish, we're happy to serve you as well. So there's a slightly, more nuanced set of thoughts on that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Josh.
Yep, absolutely. I totally hear Nitzan's point. There are an incredible number of people who've bought the American Dream story, went through school, graduated with debt, and are unemployed or underemployed in this country, and they can certainly be supported by these reskilling programs. We also know that there's sort of great inflation in the hiring, and the number of jobs that require a bachelor's degree now that didn't 5 or 10 years ago, and that don't actually require it when you look at the competencies, is also a major problem. And so that's one of the reasons we focused on those who don't have necessarily the skills, don't have the networks, and don't even have the access to jobs because they're screened out through the applicant tracking system before they even hit the front door. So those are the ones that have the highest need, but I take Nitzan's point to be sure. I guess the story I would tell, Ryan, is of Hillary, who's a hairdresser in the Seattle area, and she, when everything closed down with COVID, right, her income dried up to zero. And then as things started to reopen, she could go back to work, but she felt, quite at risk, right? Every day being in a little place, doing hair. And so he said, how can I can't do this forever. It was really a wake up call. And so she came to Skill Up, and, in 30 seconds, she started getting recommended careers, and she looked at data analysts. She said, kind of a geek at home. I love balancing my checkbook, and I actually like organizing, and this data analytics seems really interesting. And so she's enrolled in a data analytics program now. There's hard work to be done, exactly as Nitzan said. It's not an overnight thing. This is not a 2 weeks. This is a several months process. But I think it was an example of somebody finding their hidden talents, finding the unlocking some combination of someone's interests and passions with where there actually is economic opportunity, and now is on her way in a way that she couldn't imagine pre-COVID. So I think those are the stories of connecting people to those opportunities and great programs like Nissan's and many others that are starting to crop up around the country now.
Those are amazing stories. Thank you for sharing. It's really incredible to see what's possible when people come together to show a better path forward for these people, and that's what this is all about. In the time we have left, Nitsan, how can people get involved with Climb Higher? And then Josh, how can people get involved with Skill Up? And we'll close with that.
Okay, so we're about building relationships. So there's a number of ways. One, if you want to meet climbers and get to know them and help them practice the skills that they're learning in our program, i.e., how to talk to somebody at a cocktail party and keep a conversation going so that they want to open up a door for you. I mean, that's a really scary thing to do, talk to strangers and find connection and find homophily is what we call it. And so we have quite a number of what we call social capital building events that are volunteer events in which we introduce climbers to middle-class professionals and they get a chance to practice those skills. But the real goal of them is that the professionals fall in love and they want to open up their networks to this person that they might not have met in another way. And many climbers have gotten jobs through those events. We have one coming up this week. We have actually a lot of them coming up this week, and then we've got a number in March as well. You go to our website, www.climbhigher.co. You can sign up for those fairly regularly. And then similarly, we're always building relationships with employers who want to hire non-traditional but highly vetted and really thoughtful entry-level employees. And so we are constantly talking to talent acquisition leaders at any company that wants to talk to us. And so if you are part of a talent acquisition world, please come talk to us about hiring climbers. And then lastly, in our partnership with Skill Up, our partnership with Josh and his team, we are always recruiting for the next incoming cohort of climbers. We have our next cohort launching in a few months from now and are actively recruiting and selecting candidates right now. And so if you know somebody that's between the ages of 22 and 33 and is earning below livable wage, please come and apply to be part of our next cohort.
Great. So two ways to get engaged with the Skill Up Coalition. One is sharing skillup.org with frontline workers who could benefit from this. It could be directly, or it could be organizations that reach many of these workers. So it's just skillup.org, just like it sounds. Secondly, if you're an organization that's interested in potentially joining the coalition or supporting us in other ways, send a note to info@skillup.org, and we'll be sure to get back to you. In particular, we've just announced something called the Skill Up Together Fund, in partnership with the Charles Koch Foundation and Stand Together and Social Finance and Opportunity at Work and JFF, where we're creating a dedicated fund to help individuals like URAL and Hillary to be able to succeed in programs like Climb Higher and others, where we'll provide a $1,000 grant to cover the cost of could go to the program. It could be a laptop, and broadband access might be holding you back. It may be a completion stipend, it may be extra support in networking. And so we're just launched this program, the Skill Up Together Fund. It could be a great opportunity for individuals to get involved and support individuals like Hillary and URL. So there's many ways to get involved, and it's a big tent, and it's going to take all of us to put these solutions together. No one of us can do it alone.
Wonderful. Well, Nitsan and Josh, thank you for being with us today. Thanks for your leadership in reimagining the future of work and learning. At the Charles Koch Foundation, we're excited to partner with innovators like Nitsan and Josh, who are disrupting the status quo and empowering people to unlock their potential. If you have a vision for a better way in education, please visit us at our South by Southwest exhibitor page. And thank you again for joining us today.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.